because I just like talking about Star Wars on Carbon Scoring, and here we are. Hello. Hi. Ken.
Hey, how you doing this week?
Is it a new week? Is it a week? Is it a
I mean,
month?
it's been
Is it
like
a
two
year? I
weeks.
don't even know.
It's every other two.
What are we
Yeah,
doing?
no, time does not pass when you're in the slipstream. I'm trying to think. Words good.
Do you think...
So
Okay, hold on. We have to introduce our guest first before I ask my question, because I think everybody has to participate in the answer to this question. Hello, Loren.
Hi, I'm Loren. Happy
Hi.
to be here.
Hi, Loren. Thank you for joining us. As we have said a couple times before, Kit's out. Kit's going to be out for a while, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
congratulations.
He's got some stuff to deal with. So we have great guests coming in to help us out, and it's really fun to have you here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me real
For
quick.
those,
Yeah, go for it, Ken.
I would say for those who've listened in the past, I've mentioned a previous podcast I did called The Geek Offensive. That was a couple years ago now. We actually had an episode where we talked about Game of Thrones. And on that one of those episodes, both Andy and Lauren came in and we talked a good long, probably hour and a half, 2 hours,
Way
all
too long.
about, yeah, all about Game of Thrones. And it was a good pod. And so I was like, hey, we need another person for the episode. Who can we reach out to? I'm like, I know someone who's a Star Wars fan, and there's good chemistry. Let's get this guy.
Yeah. What is number one? Your pilot. If you needed a pilot, Loren, we got to get to know you for a second. To get you, and you're not allowed to say Han Solo, from Coruscant to Kessel, and then hide you somewhere in the Outer Rim, who are you gonna pick? It doesn't have to be a smuggler. I just mean the talent. You can do the smuggling. You can do the smuggling.
See, I'm not like super well versed in like obscure Star Wars
That's okay.
pilots,
Doesn't.
but
need to
I
be.
think Hondo Onaka would make the ride enjoyable for sure.
Oh yeah, see, that counts, and that's relative. I'm gonna say that that's obscure in the new world of Star Wars that we live in, which is a good world. I'm gonna say, where a lot of casual people are watching The Mandalorian and loving it. And if you said Hondo Onaka to them, they would think you're the nerd.
That's probably fair.
I'm just saying.
He's at Disneyland now, though. Like, he's
that's a good
big
point.
thing there. So I mean, I haven't been
wrong.
yet, but like,
No, you're
he's
right.
on the new Millennium Falcon ride in some capacity. So
not some
Run.
capacity, a big capacity.
I haven't been. I've only been to the back end of the cantina.
Oh, okay. I would say, however, I went on that Millennium Falcon ride and I texted Ken while in the line to that ride, and I said, "Who is this Hondo Onaka guy?"
Oh, there you go.
So that might have been the beginning of the road there of watching Rebels and then going back and watching Clone Wars and then all that sort of. Okay, we've met Loren. Hyperspace. Does time pass when you're in hyperspace?
Oh hell, I don't know.
On the ship. I mean, it does. I'm asking because, like, you know, there's other sci-fi that time dilation of leaving the planet and all that sort of stuff, you know, like in Alien and all that other. You leave Earth, you age at a different speed than everyone else. Do you think
for
does
sure.
hyperspace affect?
I don't think Star Wars has time dilation.
Oh, that might be.
I think when you're moving through hyperspace, if you spend 2 weeks in hyperspace, only 2 weeks has passed when you get out. But you're, far more than 2 weeks worth of travel time away. It's like another dimension you move through, right? Maybe I don't know the metaphysics of it.
But you're moving faster than light, right? That's hyperspace, right? Are you you're moving?
Is it FTL? I don't know if it's FTL.
The stars are bending.
Space whale travel, man.
Well, time does not pass on the space whale. I bet you when we see Ezra next, he will be very young.
Oh,
could be.
Really?
That would be interesting.
I'm just saying, him and Thrawn.
Interesting.
No time passing. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a bold statement. I don't know if that's true. I think we're gonna have time passage. I mean, I think we're going to see an older, and as everyone is showing in their fan art, bearded Ezra.
Is that really the thing? Ezra now
Yeah,
has a beard. I
that's
like
been
that.
a lot of fan stuff.
They probably like a Kanan beard.
Yeah, a lot of them have drawn parallels there, at least in their like, oh well, Kanan had a beard, and so like Ezra would do the same thing as he aged up because he would feel
Yeah.
maybe a connection there.
Yeah, that's
At
fair.
least that's what I've seen. So
Maybe he gets older, right? I mean, the space whale can't travel forever, but when he gets out and he starts aging again, he should be younger in theory than he should be.
why?
Because the space
Why?
whale.
Why does he? Yeah, but space. Okay, but the idea, the
The
conceit we
space
see in
whale is
Rebels
actually another dimension.
no. It's just traveling through light speed.
They
Like,
can
it's
also
doing the
just
same
light
thing.
speed. Okay. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. It is called light speed. So there you go. Speed of light. You are going faster than the world around you. So you arrive quicker than you left.
Right, but there's still been like they still like
That didn't
for
come
a
out
week's
right.
worth of travel. They don't travel. They don't suddenly end up being like, oh, like they don't stay young. It's not like every time we've seen even Luke and everyone in a X-wing. There's no time dilation there for them. There's no time dilation for the Falcon. There's no like that hasn't been. I've never seen aside from some comics, and that was just a matter of the just sustained stasis.
Uh-huh.
There's no real kind of like anti-aging thing there.
I'd be curious. Maybe in the never forthcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series, you find out he's X 100 years old because he's been in space so much. Or is that why Yoda's so old? I'm really drawing this out.
I'm really curious as to where your thread is that you're pulling from this that is going
I'm
to touch on.
just trying not to get
I mean-
angry before we have to talk about the thing that was the reason we have the podcast.
Oh, okay. Where's this anger? Don't hate leads to the dark side. What are you doing? What's going on?
I sense much fear in you, right? That's what she says to Grogu. I always get it backwards. It's Grogu, not Gorgu.
Yes, it's
Grogu.
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 Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. I just get tongue tied. I can see it in my head, and then I do the wrong one. Okay. Well, spoilers. We're gonna talk about the Mandalorian because that's the Star Wars thing. And I was really excited with the last couple episodes. I assume both of you had positive feelings. Maybe not. I don't want to speak for you, but generally positive feelings. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had a blast with both of them.
Okay.
Do you want to go back to the Jedi first, and we'll start from there?
We can go back to the Jedi. Yes, because I texted you, and I said this was really cool. I enjoyed lots of it, and somehow we got to the point that fans were big mad about Leku.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is fans are gonna fan whenever they can, so they'll be like, her Leku were too short. They're longer in Rebels, and that said it before this. So why does she have shorter Leku? And like, really, that's the takeaway. Like, you got to see this awesome episode, and you're like, I don't know about those Leku. That's the problem I'm having. Like, but what we had Michael Biehn in this. We had Kyle Reese was in this episode.
Kyle Reese.
And you want to complain to me that he's all right. Let's focus on the wrong thing, guys.
We talked a little bit before the podcast started about constructive criticism, and that's not it. I don't think. And it made me initially roll my eyes, and then the more I thought about it, it made me mad that people couldn't take something that was objectively cool, which was that episode. We'll talk about it because there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about in there with like hidden droids and 7th Fleet symbols and all that sort of stuff. But something that's objectively cool that people that didn't know who Ahsoka Tano were, didn't know that Beskar was immune to lightsabers, didn't know, all these fun things popped up in this episode for fans. And like initially I said, I rolled my eyes, and then I thought, no, I'm now upset because translating a cartoon to the real screen, how much better could you do?
I don't think you could have. I think that Rosario Dawson did a fantastic job. I don't think she had the physicality for it. She had the presence on screen, I don't think you could have like this was fantastic. I mean, there was the little thing, the like my little bit of constructive criticism is maybe some of the lightsaber forms she used because she never held her lightsabers in that classic Ahsoka Tano way.
Oh yeah.
And she like there's aside from that, like that, and that's something like stupid that I'm a pedant and know about. Like
I did notice she held them upside down at one point, and I was like, ooh, okay, oops.
She switched to the reverse grip in the last like leg of that fight.
yeah.
From my understanding, the reason they shortened the Leku is because the prosthetics were getting in the way of the stunts.
Did they try longer ones ahead of time?
I don't know if they tried longer ones. I'm sure
Mhm.
they maybe tried something longer.
Yeah,
We're like,
they
this isn't
test
working
fit all
out.
that sort of stuff, right?
And Mandalorian is, in a lot of ways, one of the reasons people like it is because it's getting back to the more practical effects. There's still plenty of CG, for sure, but it's done in a way that is not as glaringly obvious as the more, I guess, modern or even prequel trilogy films. That it's like they've got that cool set they use for the 360 like environments and stuff.
The
that
volume.
That's crazy, but like you don't have tons of aliens that are just CGI'd everywhere. Almost all of them are puppets and costumes, and so it kind of feeds back into that. To me, I'm like, this is cool. I don't care that her Leku aren't that long. She's not like Shakti, who just like stood in the background with her hands in her robes and did nothing. Which, like, Shakti's rad. You see her do cool stuff in the Clone Wars because it was all CG. She could do that, and have,
and the animated stuff
flopping around.
And the Gendy Tartakovsky stuff. She was that's where I was first introduced her, and she's badass in that. Like she fights Grievous, and he's a beast, and like that was my first introduction.
Back when Grievous was scary.
Yeah,
I still think he's scary. He's still terrifying.
I think there's a version of him that I want to remember. You know what I mean? Like there's two versions of Grievous. There's the kids' version of Grievous from the early days of the Clone Wars second series, and then there's Tartakovsky / I think the movie Grievous is actually pretty terrifying too. If you like,
he is pretty terrifying.
Like think about what he can do.
The issue with the Clone Wars Grievous, not to get totally off topic, but
I told you this was going to happen.
The second series Clone Wars Grievous, the problem is they always send Anakin and Obi-Wan in after he has already committed horrible war crimes and mass murder, because they're not going to show that on a kid's show.
Sure.
It's like, we need you to go out here because he's killed literally hundreds of thousands of people and now he's running away. I think that's just kind of how it shakes out.
What's funny and silly about Grievous during the later Clone Wars series is that he gets good in some of the worst episodes. Like the tactical mind of Grievous comes up, but only when we're defending the Akbar planet. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. That really started to get under my skin, and I think that I wanted to just throw out there at the beginning of all this that Jedi episode, including Rosario Dawson and her very, very good Ahsoka Tano costume, stood out to me as a person that has slowly over the last year caught up to this as very true to the idea of Ahsoka Tano, especially. We've lost how many years since Rebels, right? Between then and now, I believe who she became, in a way.
Between the bulk of Rebels, I think it's been 5 or 6 years. No, at this point, I guess it'd be about 10. Oh God, now I want to look up a chart,
a timeline chart.
Yep,
it's all good. All right, the Jedi.
One of the opening scene of the. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the best film referential episodes I think that has existed so far, in terms of starting off in a Kurosawa movie and ending in a Clint Eastwood spaghetti western kind of moment, like bookending the idea of how we created the western. All happens in that movie. You go from Kurosawa to Unforgiven to like the whole arc. In one little episode, which was longer, but you're right, by the way, Ken, that the episodes shifting in time. I think that was you or Kit that was saying that we're not gonna stay even over the course of the season. Did you guys feel the ambiance of that going back to like maybe the beginning of season 1 of just saying, hey, no, this is the Western show. Now that we've got all the the Mandalorian, Bo-Katan stuff out of the way.
Yeah, there's. Oh, so go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say I totally got the Kurosawa and Sergio Leone vibes.
Yeah.
Like 100%. It is Star Wars has always been a Western in space, but with samurai influences, obviously with the Jedi. But as you said, those two styles of film, the spaghetti Western and the action samurai flick, have borrowed so much from one another, going back and forth over the years. Clearly, like mostly the Westerns were inspired by the samurai films, and then back and forth. And so like getting to see that, like, this is a Western until a samurai shows up, and then it's just a Kurosawa movie complete with wind and the forests and all of that was
ninja
really,
flipping up
really
onto the
cool.
rooftops.
It was fantastic.
I mean, definitely, yeah. It's amazing how we've gone like in this reference circle. I think from you start with episode 4, and you can see the direct correlation of episode 4 back to the films that inspired him and the Campbell ideas that inspired him. And, we go off on its own track. And then about halfway through, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, when we start these TV shows and stuff, we should remember that it's kind of like a space Western again. And that's how you get Cade and all these other ideas that are directly referential. And now with The Mandalorian, we're back not just to taking ideas, but like re-referencing and showing people what it was like in those films direct. I mean, straight up gong to tell people that people are approaching the town, straight out of Kurosawa films. Like, I don't know how you couldn't just smile the whole time, even if you weren't paying attention to the story.
I mean, that's if you know those references, and that's
a good point. Yeah.
Like, I mean, as much as I definitely enjoy it too, but I do know we've talked about in the last pod how, like, oh, Katie's watching it with you, and then she's like, oh, well, so who is that? Like, we were talking about the Bo-Katan thing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my God, that's Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. This is the best thing ever. And for her, she's like, oh, cool, Katie. And you're like, no, but it's Bo-Katan.
But it's Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the leader of the Night Owls, and she.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely. Got... No, go
sorry. There's definitely moments of like, I watch it with a group of friends, and there are people who are like, wait, what is this? And I'm like, so these are the 5 episodes of Rebels you need to watch to understand what just happened, or like through Wikipedia. I mean, like, you obviously don't to fully enjoy it, but there's a little bit of a disconnect.
No, not to fully.
There's a little bit of it. There's definitely a bit of a disconnect I'm seeing from people who are like, I'm not really vibing with this season as much. And I'm like, did you watch Clone Wars and Rebels? And they're like, no. And I'm like, that's why.
I think it happened in the Bo-Katan episode. You weren't on the last one where I talked about this, but I have a very lucky to have a large swath of people that watch this that I know. And they range from have never even finished the original movies of Star Wars, really, to Ken. And so I pull after a lot of these episodes where I wonder if people liked it or not. There's a lot of episodes where I can already tell, like, oh, well, that was like a filler one. Like the one this past season where they went back to Navarro, or this season where they went back to Navarro and they blew up the base. And there was a few nuggets of information in there about like, oh, they're creating some sort of hybrid or something. But you don't really know. And
Dark Troopers. And we got Dark Troopers.
And Dark Troopers show up at the end of the episode, which I didn't quite get at that point. I was like, oh, those look like troopers, maybe. Some of those are really easy to pick out. Like, I could tell you on that one, the whole range are going to be like, yeah, it was all right. It was like a filler kind of good thing, but it wasn't everything you would want or whatever. And then after the Bo-Katan one, I could definitely tell almost everyone up until the people that had, like you just said, watched Rebels and Clone Wars were going to be like, I don't feel complete having watched this. The problem I think that happens is when I'm trying to phrase this exactly right, because it's tough to the people that didn't know who Ahsoka was. just knew she was a Jedi, and over the course of the people that I talked to, and over the course of watching it, figured out that something bad had happened to her and she was no longer a Jedi. You didn't know when she said, some people figured it out on their own or assumed they knew on their own. When she said in this episode, oh, I've seen what, emotions do. I've seen what when things get in the way of training, what can happen, attachments can do. I won't train him. Some people just made the assumption about Darth Vader, and some people were like, yeah, whatever. I don't know what that means, but I don't care really. What happened, I think, and you guys pull this idea and pull on the threads of it or whatever. Ahsoka is backdrop. Ahsoka is directly scenery to the mission he's on. She's directly connected to his mission. And therefore, if she hints at something else, like she hints at the end about Thrawn, it's kind of like I don't feel like I missed anything because it's not directly affecting Mando and who he is, right? Like Din Djarin is a character we've known and we're getting to know better. And after the most recent episode, I kind of wonder if he's an idiot. But
I mean, I think we've seen that quite a bit.
Yeah,
see him. Yeah, you see him with the night owls, and he's just like, you think he's
Charges
this badass Mandalorian, right? Yeah, like you see him when you put him on with someone else in his same league, like he's the one who's kind of stumbling through stuff.
Yeah,
where it's like, yeah, he's kind of above your average bounty hunter because he's had some training, but you put him next to these war hardened veterans. And they're just sidestepping blaster bolts left and right. And the same thing when we're talking about the tragedy, is he's like, he's doing his best, but there's times when it's like, dude,
what are you doing?
Yeah. Like he's relied on his armor. Before this he didn't necessarily have full Beskar, but now it's like he just relies on it. Like, oh, I'll just charge in like a bull in a china shop, and I'll get to the end because I got this armor.
Armor. Yeah. I think the problem, though, to finish my thought, and I want to know what Loren hears in this, is the Mandalorians, when they show up, they change Din's character. They change your perspective of Din's character, where Ahsoka doesn't change your perspective of... Well, she might a little bit, where he's willing to not just leave Grogu on the planet. He's willing to be the parent. But that more happens in the next episode in the tragedy, right? When Bo-Katan shows up and tells you in one short episode that the Mandalorian planet is still around and not destroyed, that they're going to go to war to get the Mandalorian planet back, that he's some sort of weird outlier cultist that isn't really a Mandalorian. Like, they lay on you the history of Mandalore in a shaded, not complete way, where I think a lot of people were left going, well, wait, hold on. You're trying to tell me there's more to this character's history as well as the history of the people he's connected to, and now we're done. And also that was done in the middle of trying to do a heist, so I'm a little bit confused. I think that episode specifically points out how far you can go with some of this stuff. And so when I polled a lot of people about Ahsoka, the feelings weren't there. They weren't the same. Ahsoka was a cool lightsaber wielding person that clearly wasn't a Jedi anymore. And then she was gone at the end of it, right? I don't know. That was a long-winded thing to say. I think some characters affect the Mandalorian too much to be side characters. And hopefully we don't have that with Boba Fett.
It seems to me that Bo-Katan is going to return, or we're going to get something that has to deal with her. If Filoni's track record is anything, it's that he pulls this stuff out of the EU and uses it to deliver really satisfying stories about the non-Skywalker parts of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so parts. My theory is that one of two things is going to happen. Either, and I think I actually heard about this today, and I could be wrong. Maybe it was a dream or some false article I saw. But I was really upset when, to go on a tiny tangent that's related, I was really upset when Clone Wars got canceled. And then it was like, wow, that sucks. I don't get to see more of that. And then it was like, nah, Filoni's just doing Rebels now and bringing back all the same characters, 30 years in the future. So I saw something that said there was a casting call for a Mandalorian prequel. I'm like, okay, what does that look like? Oh, it's going to be, if Filoni's in charge, it's about the fall of Mandalore. We're going to see Bo-Katan.
Finally.
We're going to see stuff like that. Was my thought. So like if Bo-Katan does not continue to be a main character, or at least the fall of Mandalore, the retaking of Mandalore continue to be pieces of the Mandalorian, I'm sure that Filoni or someone else will pick that up and run with it in a way that's going to be satisfying and interesting. As far as Boba Fett's like new introduction, I think there's a reason they blew up the Razor Crests, and I think it's so that they can have him around and force that interaction. And I'm wondering if Boba Fett is going to be the one who like literally and figuratively pulls Din out of his shell, so to speak.
Oh, out of his shell, literally. Good job.
Yeah,
I like that.
Is the one who is going to be like, look, you don't have to wear the helmet all the time.
I think, even if that moment at the end where he shows him a chain code and says, look, there's Mandalorians everywhere, man. You don't have to be your own man. I have to interrupt because you mentioned the Razor Crest, and I put, this is a shout out to Kit, who will likely listen to this later. I put all my eggs in the basket of claiming at the beginning of this season that the Razor Crest would not make it through. All my eggs.
It's had a tough time.
I thought I had been betrayed by my feelings. You know what I mean? Like full on Jedi status. When that thing made it off that ice planet, I was like, you guys have really done me in on this one, and I'm becoming a little bit angry, and now I'm redeemed. I'm more of a gray Jedi at the moment in terms of my feelings. I always had this notion that the Razor Crest set was not in its own way defined by the space they had, so they could always get rid of it. It's not, with the amount of stuff they have, the amount of set pieces they have, they can always just get rid of stuff. And one of the defining pieces of that character that they can easily use to change him was the Razor Crest, right? And so when you see it, it's like a gigantic bullseye. It's like, people's ships become their personalities in Star Wars. Boba Fett is Boba Fett, and he had the iconic armor, but now that other people have the armor, who's Boba Fett? Boba Fett is Slave One, right? Han Solo is the Millennium Falcon. Luke is an X-Wing. Every character gets their own outer shell to live in, I guess, if you want to call it that, right? Man, do we have stuff to say about the Jedi episode? First of all, it's really, really sad to me that we're not going to have more Kyle Reese.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that.
I was too.
I thought we might get. I thought we like. Is there a chance they just like he's like lets him like? I mean that he says, you know what? I was here for the paycheck. I'm out. Like, because otherwise, it's like, oh, she's in there. You're right here. There's no more paycheck. I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go, like, what's the payday there? Why bite that? Why start that fight? Why die on that hill?
Yeah.
But then he's like, no, time to go out. I'm like, no, Michael Biehn.
We don't have to recap every minute of the episode, but if anybody had any strong feelings about any of either this plot or maybe some references that you saw, I loved seeing HK droids not in a video game. That was pretty cool. Newer ones that obviously didn't look like HK-47, but I'll take it. It was cool to see anything other than an IG droid, and I think they did a really good job making them into like the samurai idea of, okay, well, you don't just need stormtroopers or whatever these faceless other stormtroopers were. It's just other extras. But
I did love, I love the random background character. I don't think we ever get a name for him, but he was important.
The mayor, the new mayor,
the new mayor who's like, wait a minute, what are his qualifications? They just pick the guy who hit everyone in his house. And
He's the guy that was willing to open his door.
He's great. Everything about him I absolutely loved. The magistrate was cool in that she sucked. It was an interesting villain. As opposed to just like, it was something we hadn't seen quite yet. Usually in the Mandalorian and in a lot of Star Wars games, the people who we see as villains are like enemy generals or Sith or crime lords. And I guess there's an argument to be made that she was a crime lord, but it was not portrayed in the same way as like Jabba the Hutt or I'm trying to think of literally any other crime lord, and I know there's others, but I can't. But she was very cool in that way.
She's an interesting character. She's an interesting foil too, because she is, I think, and somebody can correct me, Grief Karga, just on a different planet. Like, she fills the same role there, as he would have, except that, you know, he was the magistrate of his planet, wasn't he? Not was he not?
He was at one point a magistrate of another planet,
right?
And then he joined the Bounty Hunter Guild after kind of that failed, and he became he's the new magistrate of the current that I'm now forgetting the name of. But I think that as jumping backwards, I think that the person that we first see who Mando tries to talk to, and he's, no, please don't talk to us. I feel like the reason why he kind of comes back to, or the reason why he's put in power, is that he was actually the previous magistrate, or kind of maybe, let's say, governor, what you will. And it feels like they kind of like, oh, well, hey, the people who essentially occupied our city is gone now. So he was probably trusted in the village. And so like, no, like this is your role. Like you need to, he comes back to it.
I think Loren's point was that you're writing that on top of there. There's no real indication of what's going on there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I liked seeing I don't know what you call those rings from Rebels, the little electrocution rings that they had for torturing people show up here again.
Oh yeah. Bindings.
I mean, yeah, the ones where they had them in the stockade, where they were standing up. I think this cool background stuff that I think a lot of people didn't really get to know existed in Star Wars. You see the only torture you see is Han Solo get his face put into some sort of red thing, and then show up looking exactly like Han Solo and not damaged at all except for his hair. So the idea in the main series of movies about what the world really behind your main characters, behind the set piece doesn't exist very often in the marquee stuff. So, a lot of people were exposed to the grittiness of this. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see a spear made out of Beskar too.
Yeah, that was a fun fight. It was really interesting.
I didn't think it was going to be exciting at the first, and then the idea of bouncing back and forth and not showing the whole fight, and I don't know if that's because of limitations to training someone to fight in a 20-minute episode of something, or if it's because they chose to make this artistically this way. I really loved bouncing back and forth and really not showing the Jedi fight, right? Because Star Wars is lightsaber battles to most people, and so having a showdown in the street, like a literal high noon showdown in the street, happen at the same time, and focusing on it is a cool choice to have made, I think.
Yeah. I mean, going to the fight with the magistrate, she's actually a highly accomplished martial artist. She actually stuttered. Her father is a...
Wasn't her I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about Rosario Dawson.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how much fight training she's had.
She was in a Marvel series or 4.
Oh yeah,
and she's also been in other stuff too. That she's done other, in those movies and stuff. But then, I guess to your point though, how much time do you have to?
Yeah, that's really my point. I don't think she as a person would not be competent at being trained to do a lightsaber fight, but she's also being asked to, in whatever amount of time she's actually in this show before they spin it off into a different show, she's asked to become a character that everybody loves and not screw it up, have a lot of deep connection to a puppet, I mean, there's a lot of other acting that had to go into all this stuff, including wearing prosthetics and making them look natural, which I think she did pretty well.
Yeah.
And then she's also got other fight scenes to do. Some of it was obviously somebody else when the camera's far away. But she's got other stuff to do. So, yeah, it becomes a question of time more than anything. And I wonder if they had enough time to have choreographed that, if we'd have seen it more. I hope not, actually, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the way they did it was very good. I really enjoyed the cutting back and forth. You could just hear the lightsaber clashing in the background. You know that these two gunslingers on the outside are like waiting for it to stop.
Yeah.
To see who won.
It's like waiting for the clock hand, right?
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as Beskar too, I know only X amount about the world sometimes too, but I didn't know Beskar was fully, in its purest form as lightsaber resistant. Like it's just full on, like just like nope, you can hold it there and it's not going to do anything. I mean, I'm more familiar with Cortosis, the one that actually disrupts lightsabers, and that's what I like when I think of like a metal that's resistant to lightsabers. I think of that. And so I was like, oh no, so it's just like it can full on stop a lightsaber. Like that was an interesting thing that came up. I'm like, okay, cool. I just accept it. It was just, but it was. We are from the beginning of the series building up Beskar to be this I shouldn't say magical material, but one that's properties are somewhat limitless.
I think that's a result of them being Cortosis isn't technically canon anymore. It hasn't appeared in any canon properties, as far as I know. And so Beskar's sort of taking over that role because they don't want to have to be like, hey, we already introduced Beskar. Now let's tell you about Cortosis. And so as far as I know, Cortosis isn't present in any stuff in the new canon or whatever's considered canon. So I think Beskar's just filling that role because they keep referencing the Mandalorian Wars and the Mandalorian Civil Wars and all that stuff when they did use Cortosis to fight the Jedi. And that would have just been like a whole nother, we got to either spend an episode explaining it or have two characters just spout, lore at each other until that's resolved. But just being like, Beskar's resisted to fucking everything is fine.
I think
it does look, by the way, I'm just looking at Wikipedia because I had it up. Cortosis has been name checked in Clone Wars, but we didn't see it on, just like they mentioned the material.
Yeah, I don't think
but you're right though. Like
I don't think that ends up canon if it's not a direct thing. I know that it is canon, right? That it's somewhere, but I don't know that you call it canon if it's not something that you would just not see used I think or whatever.
Yeah, to me, it just comes down to that it exists in the world, whether it still has the same properties is an unknown quantity. Sure. It's just like, oh, it does. Yeah, it's like when people. Well, that's the thing too. Is like on a very similar note. I guess we're jumping forward a little bit. And there's a moment where in the next episode where they talk about in the chain code that comes up on Boba's gauntlet. It mentions it's if you I was watching a thing called New Rockstars where they talk about what the text actually says. It mentions Jaster, and Jaster's one of the Mandalorians that brought in Jango, and his made him a foundling.
Well,
and that's
he said Jaster in this, right? Didn't he?
I don't know if he says Jaster.
Sure, I heard Jaster
mentioned by name.
I think he did. He said Jaster gave it to my dad, and my dad gave it to me.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
There you go. Yeah, and so that's.
I was like, "Who's Jaster?" I was pretty sure. In my head was like, "Huh, who's Jaster?"
Yeah, and that's in the comics that are. It's called Open Season. Okay. It's a Star Wars Open Season. It's a Dark Horse comic that they may try to start canonizing, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's as far as we know, just a dude named Jaster gave it to him. Whether that comic actually happened in canon, we don't know that. We just know that someone named Jaster gave him this armor. And that's where you kind of have to, like, when people are like, oh, that makes this canon. It's like, no, like, just by saying Darth Revan doesn't automatically make all of this game canon. It just means that there was someone in the past named Darth Revan. Yeah. That's all that you know. That's all that you can confirm. And so that's where it is with Cortosis. I'm just like, oh, well, I guess I just kind of have to take what little bit, like, okay, it's out there, but we'll see if we ever get anything from it.
It's not the only thing that's resistant to lightsabers or even immune, because we saw in the first of the sequels, somebody has a crackling baton,
Energy baton.
energy baton.
Yeah.
And so and in old EU stuff, I even think that vibroblades held up against some lightsabers, and
Vibroblades absolutely did. I think that might still be canon that they can. I'm not positive. We've seen more vibro weapons in The Mandalorian than we have in, I think, any other Star Wars property that's not a video game.
Yeah.
Which considering I think we've seen 3 is not a whole lot.
It's interesting that the lightsaber, I mean, he even calls it a laser sword in here. And at this point in canon, they aren't even afraid of them enough anymore for him not to try and block them with his arms and get them cut off. Right. Like
he didn't know.
He didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But he calls it a laser sword.
Oh, God.
So it's interesting. And how do you feel about the idea that like in like the prequels, oh man, the Jedi's weapon is the most important thing in the world. The lightsaber almost is fetishized in some of the games when like you go in Fallen Order to build your lightsaber multiple times, or you could spend an hour like I did making your custom saber on the bench and all that sort of stuff, right? Like even at Disneyland, the idea of doing the lightsaber thing is not just like a go like it was at Star Tours. Like at Star Tours, you could always build your own lightsaber. It took 8 minutes. In the Star Trader underneath, you could build your own lightsaber in 8 minutes. Done. This is still the experience. So now we're in The Mandalorian, and a lot of stuff's resistant to it over the course of now what is canon. And he calls it a laser sword. It's not really that respectable of a weapon anymore.
I think it still is. The problem is that you have so few of them out there that it's like, well, I'm never gonna encounter that.
You can't build a whole ship out of Beskar, right?
Yeah, you can't. Or there's people who are like laser swords. Yeah, sure. So, I mean, at this point, people have forgotten what the Jedi even are. Yeah. So, who's to say you even know what a lightsaber is? Oh, cool laser sword. What does that do? It's just, is it a blaster bolt that just stops? Like,
well, also, yeah, and also on the note too, he's kind of an incel. Like he's in a cult. To depend on your point of view, he's locked into just his own. All he's been exposed to is his culvert. Like that's what he's grown up in. It's all he knows. That's every bit of his life since being a kid has been in the Children of the Watch. And so he's like, when they start mentioning Jedi, he's like, what are the Jedi? It's like, oh, they're, even the armor has to tell him who the Jedi are. It's an ancient enemy of the Mandalorian. And he doesn't even know that there's other Mandalorians that take off their helmets. Like all he knows is this small little, like, just a small cell of people.
It's interesting that we're starting to discover we didn't get the best Mandalorian. We got the one we got.
Yeah.
In a way, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Man. Well, it was a good Jedi episode for sure.
Sometimes that's a good story to have. Is like you don't always need to have the chosen one. Sometimes the chosen one turns out to be pretty crappy too. But you can just be like, hey, he's doing his damn best, and that's what you can ask for.
So before we move on to the tragedy, do you think after Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano mentioning that there's another Jedi that could come to him, are we heading towards dragging the Mandalorian into canon and maybe possibly losing people for season 3? Like into the deep canon, right? Like, okay, I might have to go watch some Rebels if I want to keep watching this because I don't know who Ezra is. Or is this going to be a branching point where they've done, all right, there's some characters out here that we were able to put on film that people were interested in. It sounds like maybe you've had some off-camera knowledge or off-film knowledge of that being cast. Do they split it completely? Do we get to stay with the Mandalorian only as he keeps exploring the universe, or are we going to get a lot of casuals to drop off?
I think that when you approach any piece of ancillary Star Wars media, there's a tough question of how far does this get to go and where does it get to end? I guess minor light spoilers for Jedi Fallen Order. You're playing Jedi Fallen Order, and the whole it takes place after Episode 3, but before Episode 4. Their whole goal is to go find a holocron full of younglings and restart the Jedi Order, and you sure as shit know that doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
You start watching Rebels, and I'm like, okay, cool. Just off
What
the
happened
bat,
to those
Episode
guys?
1,
Yeah.
when does Kanan die? Is like literally my first thought. So with this, it's like we know anyone going into this assuming, once we know about the Force sensitivity and Grogu being having been trained at the Jedi Temple now at this point, it's like, all right, where's the cutoff point? When do we not have Grogu anymore? When does he become something else? When does he get killed? When does he get, locked in carbonite and tossed off a cliff into an abyss or something, so we don't get to see him for the next 3 episodes where he wasn't present? What's occupying him somewhere? And that's kind of a thing with all Star Wars media. So my thought is that they are either that this might be the last season of The Mandalorian, again, before Filoni is like, wow, and here's 3 other projects that we get to go look at in the same vein. Because that's just how he does stuff. We're already getting another Clone Wars spinoff in the Bad Batch, and so
that's animated though.
But still, what I'm saying is like the way he takes to projects and is like, all right, that project is done. What can I pull from that project to do a new one? So like if this wraps up the story of the Mandalorian and Grogu, who knows? Maybe the next series we get is Bo-Katan and Din Djarin shows up in it.
I don't think we're gonna end the Mandalorian on 2 seasons. I just don't feel it. I feel like maybe Europe might be on the track of saying, okay, 2 seasons of Grogu is probably enough unless this character can do something else that is interesting beyond being a foil daddy situation. There's a guy out there his name is Tim Rogers, and he did a really good review on The Last of Us, the video game. And one of the things in his review about The Last of Us, the video game, is that a lot of video games that get recognition now seem to be, for a lot of people, about... A lot of people say they're dad games. They call them dad games. And what his point is, and to cut the story short, is that they're not dad games. They're big and little games. They're games of finding a way to experience a story with the idea of someone else being protected so that you as the viewer are somewhat protected. Right? Like your emotions are tied to the scenario that this person is protected and therefore you can invest.
Yeah.
Right? And so in those games, as they go on, his point is that your protectee becomes a collaborator with you at some point in those cycles. So either Grogu has to become a collaborator in the cycle, or this story does not go on to become something that remains watchable. So either that or he has to leave the show, right? I don't know which of those 2 things happens, but I don't think it happens in 1 season.
Yeah, there might be a time jump.
Yeah.
Between 2 and 3. Yeah. I think that we kind of have 3 options. There's 3 doors that can open, and door number 1 is Grogu's gone. He's not in the show anymore. Door number 2 is he is some sort of Force user, and we're now following that journey, whether it be light, dark, or in the middle. Door number 3, Din starts training him as a Mandalorian.
I want to see the tiny Beskar armor.
I really want to see the helmet.
Does
it have ear holes?
It's got to have just a slide over his ears, right?
Right.
Yeah. And then
he wraps him back.
Maybe it clips under his ears together.
Oh, there you go. I like that too. Yeah. Oh, but then he can't hear as well. So, I guess I don't know.
No, it clips under. Like his ears still stick out, but then it has to like hold together. Anyway, I bought one of those Black Series helmets. We're gonna see what it looks like.
I like it.
The tragedy. I, in the middle of this episode, said, see, that's the tragedy. When the Razor Crest blew up, and then was like, oh no, they cheated me. There's 2 tragedies. I got tricked.
Yeah, they know how to catch you. Yeah, there's
what an episode. Like, I think this is the best one so far. Other than the fact that I was like, what are you doing the whole time?
There was a lot of what are you doing on the part of everybody here. I feel it was like, I get that stormtroopers are stormtroopers, but like so many bad decisions made on the part of professional bounty hunters.
Yeah, well, one of them wasn't a great bounty hunter because she got killed. One of them's been living in the desert for like 12 years doing whatever, learning how to fight apparently with a gaffy stick. And the other one is not doing so good at being a bounty hunter because maybe he's distracted. I don't know. Maybe the Beskar is heavy and he's not used to it. I don't know what else is up Dean's alley. I think
he just relies on it too much. Like you all have mentioned previously, he's like, wait a minute, I'm invincible. I'll just walk straight into blaster fire. That's fine.
There was really a moment in this that I loved, actually, when the idea of using the Beskar is his go-to, where he stands in front of, what's Ming-Na's character's name?
Fennec Shand.
Fennec Shand. So she's like stuck out in the open, and he literally just shows up and is like, stand behind me. I'll just get shot a bunch. It's fine. You know, that's the strategy. Plan, huh? I got to keep her alive now because we made a deal. So I'm just going to get shot a bunch, and this Beskar is going to hold up, I hope. Considering the amount of gaps in that armor that I have now been very carefully looking at, he's very lucky. He's lucky all the time.
A lot of gaps in there.
Yeah, really. I mean, maybe it's the Batman thing, right? You put the symbol on the chest so they shoot you there.
All the shiny bits, they aim at the shiny bits.
Yeah, the Beskar is reflective, so they shoot at the Beskar and they don't shoot at the giant open midriff.
Yeah.
They teach you to shoot in the middle, right? So that's where the armor is, I guess. Okay. So they go to the place. Grogu does the thing after not trying to do the thing. And the Mando, for some reason, continues to try to get him out of it. Why do you think he did that?
Because he's dumb. And it's like, once it throws you out 2 times, and to the point that you pass out, be like, you know what, kid, 1, he's probably safer in there than he is out here. So what am I doing?
Right.
If I pull him out, he can get shot. This is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And 2, like, just leave him in there. Also, I get that he has to leave his jetpack behind for plot contrivance.
I understand, though. I understand, but why?
But exactly, give me a moment where like he tries to go back to it and he sees the troopers are already right there by it, so he can't get to it without like they're in the way. Like
I've never seen an episode where I thought something had to have been cut here because it just makes no sense that he doesn't have his jetpack on.
Yeah. It's just for the purpose that he won't have it later on to save baby Grogu.
Yeah, you can't call him Yoda anymore. He's got a name.
He does.
How do we feel about the name?
It's fine. It's better than Savage Opress.
I also
he's
land on
Evan C's Bagos, so.
But yeah, better than I'm a Gundai.
Oh wow, good pull. I mean, I'm into it. I'm okay with it. It's weird that it's got 2 G's in it, but getting away from the 4-letter, everybody's kind of like Yoda thing is good. I think.
Yaddle had 6.
Oh yeah, you've got Yoda and Yaddle. I'm like, okay, cool. We have a 3rd one. Please don't make it like Yogi or something. Like, give me a different
Yogi.
Yogi would have been good.
Yogi would have been pretty good though.
Give me a different name. It would
what about
like,
Yogu?
I'm John and I'm James, and those are the only 2 names our species use.
Every woman is Yaddle and every man is Yoda. Ooh.
I mean, as far as we know, we've got up until now we had that was 100% true.
Yeah.
In terms of canon, anyways, there was one in Knights of the Old Republic, and I do not remember what their name was.
I do not remember that either. I remember the picture of it, but I don't remember the name.
And they were like purple skin, like purple or reddish. Weird.
Like I'm remembering one that's more gray, like grayish blue.
It was grayish blue.
Not
Now I
green, but like grayish
the
blue.
KOTOR Jedi High Council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh so okay. The Razor Crest had to die. Why? I know why,
So that
but I know I
okay.
want to know what you think is coming up because the Razor Crest is dead.
I'm hoping that he just goes out and buys an Outrider just so you can have that
Man.
like have that be again.
My
like,
heart
I stole it from Dash Rendar.
My
He's
heart
this
can't
punk.
take it. My heart couldn't take it if he ended up with an Outrider. He's got
It's a couple of things, I think. And one is that obviously we now need a reason to keep these three together.
Yep.
And whoever else ends up joining this crew, we know they're going to go break out.
Almost like we might be expecting to have 7 of them attack this castle. I mean, like a magnificent 7. 7. Good God.
And defeating that is my next point. I can't count the number of samurai films and games and cowboy films and games where you lose your horse. And the ship is the horse.
Nice pull. That's good.
And so like there is a degree of self-sustainability and independence that comes with having your own ship. And the Mandalorian has up until now been, no, this is my thing. I'm going to go do it on my own. And now that's no longer an option. Without his ship, without his horse, he has to rely on other people, which is not something he has willingly wanted to do until now.
It's very similar to the island metaphor I was going to use. But we'll stick with yours. It's better. I like the horse thing. Very similar. It's good. I came up with 11 candidates for our Magnificent 7. So I know some people that would get cut. Yeah,
if you guys can look into the carbon scoring chat, might be a little harder for you, Loren, I know. But there's a channel on there for carbon scoring. It's specifically for this chat or for this show. You can see it.
Yeah, but see, you're missing people here.
I'm missing people, but we have to leave room for, like, my thing is so hopefully we'll tweet this out or put it on Instagram. So my 7 that I put up there are Din Djarin, Cara Dune, Ahsoka Tano, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, and Bo-Katan Kryze, and then one random Mandalorian with her.
Yeah, but you're forgetting a bunch of people here.
But we don't have to have everyone we've ever met. Like
Grief Karga.
I know Grief Karga, but he's a magistrate. He's going to stay behind. He's got to stay on in his town. And also, you think he went to this base to take it out because it was on his planet. It was affecting his people.
All right.
Grief Karga is also not a commando. He's a bit of a paper pusher, one who can get stuff done, but he's also not like he's not a commando. He's not a full-fledged fighter. I think he takes care of his town, and I think that we send off Cara Dune and random Mandalorians so that they can get off, and you'll feel a real sense of like, oh hey, everyone's in danger. Cara Dune died. Oh darn. And
well,
so
you're missing one. For sure already. Because Bill Burr has to come back. They already told you he's coming back. You're missing Cobb Vanth, who they're trying to create more of in the canon. So Cobb Vanth and Bill Burr are definitely in your Magnificent 7. No question.
You're right about Bill Burr. I don't think... I mean, Cobb Vanth could just be... He's for Season 3. In Season 3, you come back and Cobb Vanth is in one of those episodes.
You know who I think he needs to get? The person who so far has shown the most care and energy towards the protection of Grogu, and that's Amy Sedaris' character.
I mean, clearly, look,
she needs.
I'm sorry,
he's gonna need his new ship worked on. I'm just saying.
Put an E11 in her hands. Say the Empire took the child, and she will single-handedly dismantle it.
That's true.
He shows up. They took Grogu. Who?
I mean,
my name is Horus. Sorry,
yes.
That's a reference for no one.
She has to come back when he needs a ship, clearly. I mean, she needs to say goodbye to Grogu, etc. But she also needs
Not
to
say
help
goodbye.
him.
Say hello. She's gonna save him.
Fair point. Yeah.
But
So
yeah, no, that
I
point to
mean,
Loren.
so bye bye to random Mando from your list. Add Bill Burr back.
Yeah,
And I could maybe agree with this.
yeah. I mean, I thought about Cobb Vanth, but I'm like, we already have X, Y, and Z, and like, because we already know we're gonna get Boba, we know we're gonna get Fennec Shan, and we're gonna get Cara Dune. So like right now, that's already with Bill Burr. That's 4 people, so you have to fill in 2 more. Like you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 5 because Mando. But
Who's good?
I mean, there's
they gotta get Sam Whitmer in here before the end of the season somehow.
season 3. Wait, Sam Witwer,
Yeah, Whitwer.
okay, yeah, I'm on board with that season 3. That's when we God, I love him so much.
He's,
That's
he's busy doing The Boys, though, isn't he?
Is he on Boys?
that's the guy from Supernatural. I
mean, I'll take Carl Urban in my Star Wars. I would do that.
Yes.
Okay. So Grogu's obviously gone. We got to see amazing droids in this one too, with the Dark Troopers. How amazing is it? I love that every episode that's like, oh, that's from the video game. Oh, that's from the video game. Oh, that's from the video game. So making all these ideas from video games canon. Obviously, your point still stands that the video games are not. Well, there is one canon video game, and we're going to get to that in a second. Because my point is, I only know of one Jedi left out in the world there, Ken.
I mean, fair enough. Because that's the discussion that happened after the Jedi is like, okay, so who's going to show up?
Yeah.
Who's going to show up to train him? And it's
right.
Like,
he reached out through the Force, which means she said he would either reach out or not, right? And he did. And so
he said they. He did. It wasn't a. I'd have to go back and rewatch it, but I'm pretty sure she didn't use this.
Ahsoka said that if you put him on the pedestal, he will either choose to or not choose to reach out through the Force. If I'm remembering right.
And then a Jedi.
And then if he does reach out through the Force, a Jedi will hear him if there are Jedi left.
Gotcha. Sorry, I was sticking on the wrong pronoun.
Oh, sorry. I may have said it wrong. I don't know.
No, it's okay. I was thinking you're saying that the person who would respond would be male, and but you're saying
it is
Grogu.
The person that responds will be male.
Maybe male. You don't know.
I know of one Jedi.
You know of one Jedi. You know of multiples. You know Luke. No. Ahsoka could decide to turn on. You said no.
It can't be Luke because the timeline's wrong, and you can't have somebody else play Luke.
Wait. Why can't it be Luke? 2, how's the timeline wrong if you recast it with Sebastian Stan as Luke Skywalker? Ooh. Have you seen the imagery? It's
I have.
Fantastic.
I'm trying to decide if I like it enough to let it happen.
And so it
could be Luke. Okay. Go on. Luke considers himself a Jedi still, so it could be Luke.
It also could. So I know who you're leaning towards. You're leaning towards Cal Kestis.
Yes.
What if it's not Cal? What if it's Seer?
Seer's not a Jedi.
Is she?
No, she's not. She says she's not a Jedi. Just like Ahsoka says she's not a Jedi.
And yet, what do we call this episode?
The tragedy?
The Jedi. No, we're going back because we're talking about after that episode.
Oh, but that's not fair.
It's called The Jedi.
That's not fair.
It's not fair, but she's also not a Jedi. So I mean,
hey,
whoever chooses to reach
voice
out.
Me there, man.
I'm sorry.
That's not fair. The reason it's called The Jedi is because that's what he was told to go find. So you're telling the audience we are going to go see the Jedi that he was told to go find.
If you want to get crazy about it, you can do the foreign translations
also
of the title.
Yeah,
and they use the feminine like Le Jedi, so that's
so they're
more
not talking
that's
about
out
Grogu.
of character. Yeah, that's out of character knowledge. You know, do the half moose so that let people know that's
half moose. I remember the half moose.
Yeah, you gotta do the half moose so that people know this is out of character knowledge. That it's actually referring to a female Jedi, and I'll push up my glasses. Thusly,
I understand that you're saying that the episode is called The Jedi. I think Loren will agree with me that the idea behind that title is to tell you he's completed that part of his quest.
Yes, there's also the aspect that like what Ahsoka is wrong. Like everybody gets that wrong all the time. Everyone's like, she's a gray Jedi. It's like, no, in order to be a Jedi, you have to be a part of the Jedi Order. But technically, like that term has been changed a billion times. Who even knows what the term gray Jedi means anymore?
It doesn't
The only
exist
true
right
gray
now.
Jedi is Qui-Gon Jinn. But I think that was definitely like the Mandalorian was like, oh, it's a Jedi, but also everyone else thinks she's a Jedi because they don't
She's
know
got a
that she's not.
laser sword.
When Ahsoka left the Order, I was like, you can do that? That was an option? You at any point in time, you had the option to say, hey, I know I am like a spiritual super weapon, and if I set one toe off this line, I will become a weapon of mass destruction and an enemy warlord bent on universal domination. But I'm gonna go, and that's cool. That's totally fine.
Well, no, that you knew that because Count Dooku left too. Count Dooku was a Jedi, and he left to go be a magistrate.
I think that never like pinged in my brain that was a thing because when the first time we saw him, he was already a Sith.
Yeah. You have to come to the conclusion though that other people don't know he's a Sith, right? And so the idea was, at some point in time, these people Jedi were an essential cog in a bureaucracy machine, and they just left one bureaucracy to go to a different one in a lot of cases. Yeah, I don't agree with being some sort of weird peacekeeper, bureaucrat, negotiator, so I'm going to go do something else. Existed as an option. And then you have people later on in the canon like Seer who said emotionally I can't be a Jedi, right? And something that should have happened to Anakin, probably. Made him save the universe.
But to get back to your point that you think it's going to be Cal, to say that Cal's
it's because of the video game things. We keep seeing tiny video game things popping up. And it seems like a hint.
Gotcha. That could be, but I mean, heck, you got Dark Troopers. Why don't you just bring back? Oh, I had his name in my head and it's gone now.
Name the game and we'll give it to you.
Dark Force.
Oh, Kyle Katarn. Oh, your audio dropped out.
Sorry, Kyle Katarn, because I said Cal Kestis and therefore Kyle Katarn, both KKs, just dropped out of my brain.
I feel like Cal has replaced Katarn. Like Kestis has replaced Katarn in so much as the canon is concerned. They have one of those guys.
So to say that it's got to be Cal now because he's one of the only few, or Seer because they're the only few Jedi we know that are out there. It's like they could just make up a new Jedi.
That's true.
Enough of them survived Order 66 because we know Cal did, we know Seer did, we know every single Inquisitor survived because they were all Jedi at one point. And hell, the Grand Inquisitor was the head of the Jedi Temple Guard. So, like, man, when did he flip? He must have done that pretty early. Just been like, yeah, I'm cool with this. I know what the winning side's going to be. I'm going to, walk right up to Chancellor Palpatine and say, hey, you're going to need me.
You accept the applications? I've already got a great cover sheet. Like, can I turn it in now?
It is really strange. They've turned the Jedi from what we knew when we were younger into definitely much more of a gray zone of like, not many of them were actually the like Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi type.
Well, I mean, even there's also like variants too, because you have, I mean, I guess it's more informed knowledge, but like you have moments where it's like Qui-Gon Jinn was very much closer to the idea of a gray Jedi. Like, no, we don't need to be fulfilling these roles. We need to be finding the Force and learning straight and directly from it. Whereas Obi-Wan was much more of a by the book Jedi until he met up with Qui-Gon Jinn, and then he started to see it differently, and kind of that was a challenge for him to be under the tutelage of a Jedi Master who was very much kind of hippy dippy.
Yeah,
and
so spiritual, right? Like Quinlan Voss type.
I mean, we're going through different shades of gray here, but Quinlan Voss is kind of on that spectrum. And deeper in, and Obi-Wan is far more the bookish, like, no, this is the code.
I just mean, so there's an idea that existed of the Jedi were, and I guess this is set up by like your knowledge of Yoda teaching Luke, and Ben teaching Luke. It was a race of perfect beings, of people that had no fallacy, that were spiritually connected. Like Ben takes takes a lot of that tack early on of like, oh, the Jedi is about your mind. It's about your connection to the Force. It's about, and you get a lot of that from those types of characters. And you kind of have this idea built that the Jedi are one thing. And now a lot of people may not have seen a lot of shows and things in between to understand what has become of the idea, especially through Clone Wars, of what the Jedi Order was and how rotten it was and how not good it was in terms of the canon they have now made. And so imagine those people that went from 4, 5, 6. Maybe they watched the prequels. They probably did. Maybe they watched the sequels. Questionable. And then they came into the Mandalorian and they're like, who's this person that says she's not a Jedi that has lightsabers? I don't understand. The expansion of that argument is quite large. So I don't think you end up with a character that a lot of people know. You maybe get a character like a Cal Kestis or a Katarn that could pop in that fill the same role as before, where I don't need to know who that is outside of my knowledge of this episode, versus dropping a Luke in there and confusing people again.
Well, I think too, part of the one thing, because they do drop the note of Thrawn, your brain automatically goes, wait, when's the last time we saw Thrawn? Oh, he was leaping into deep space with Ezra. And so that's the other name that people are dropping. Like, what if Ezra's the one who shows up? And it's like, I'm not sure if that happens, because essentially, like, we have a mystery of like, okay, Ahsoka's trying to find Thrawn. If she's trying to find Thrawn,
she hasn't found Ezra.
Question mark. And so it's like, is that where, because there's also a lot of talk, again, out of character knowledge, a lot of talk is if they do a Rebels continuation. And I'm like, I want to see Hera. I want to see Jason Syndulla. I want to see all those characters back as much as I can. But it's like, how much do we essentially just make The Mandalorian Rebels season 3? Like, where does that line blur? And then there's also talk of them doing a Boba Fett TV show. And I'm just like,
oh, don't do that.
I mean, I'm just saying there's talk of it, and how much that concrete that is. I think all we know for sure is just Kenobi. That's the only thing, and the Bad Batch.
Kenobi and Bad Batch are the only two that I know are greenlit.
Yeah.
Although Kenobi's on hold.
No, I thought I heard that. What's her? The director. Oh God, Deborah Chow. Is she's been working on it, and even Ewan McGregor said that they've been doing some filming.
Oh, hold on. On the Graham Norton show in October, they said they'll start filming March 2021.
Oh, well, there you go. That didn't happen, I bet. Oh, March 2021.
Yeah,
gotcha. That makes
March
sense.
2021. But
okay.
It was originally slated as Kenobi, a Star Wars story 2019.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather, just like with video games, I'd rather it come out a little bit later and they refine more things and get more time to.
In the world of streaming, who cares when it comes out, right? Like,
I mean, I want it now. But,
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Sorry, Loren. We went on and on a bit about Jedi Masters that can show up. Did you?
I could also go on and on forever about Jedi Masters that I think would be really cool to show up.
Yeah, that aren't dead though.
That aren't dead. That's the trouble. I mean, like, hey, we only saw Ki-Adi-Mundi, Aayla Secura, and Plo Koon. Everyone else is kind of.
We never saw Quinlan Voss die.
And
I thought he died in that book.
He didn't. Spoilers for Dark Disciple. He goes on, and then if you look at the old canon, he even lived through that purge and had a kid. And like, there's a whole, like, trust me, he's one of my favorite Jedi, so he lived. By the way, jumping back because I'm that ridiculous nerd, Kyle Katarn, the first version of Kyle Katarn is Cassian Andor to me. Very much jacketed, bearded, like that was the feels that they put onto him. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, put Dash Rendar, Kyle Katarn, Cassian Andor, and Cal Kestis in a line and tell me all their costumes are not derivative.
Cal has a poncho.
Cal does not have a poncho. That is not canon. The toy does not come with a poncho.
What's the toy?
But also, I think to me, Cal
Ponchos
is closer to Zane Carrick. that's where I feel he's informed.
Yeah,
by,
Zane Carrick has a little bit of that.
design-wise.
Yeah, design wise for sure. But
To-
that puffy shoulder thing always is like stands out to me as a design.
That's a classic Star Wars design. Lots of people got the puffy shoulders.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
that's true.
But to get away from the infinite hole of ancillary Jedi and Star Wars characters we could go down for forever. Given that it's Filoni, I think it's either going to be someone new. I know like Filoni's involved. It's not entirely him, but I think it's going to be someone new or it's going to be Ezra. If it's going to be anybody, because that's what he tends to do is pull from either his own stuff or create things new, or pull from extended universe. But they've been doing that pretty heavily with the Dark Troopers and all that.
I think John Favreau's
Galen Merrick.
Oh God, I think Favreau's done a pretty good job of reinterpreting. And it's not just him directing; it's him in the writing room, taking Filoni and tweaking it. Right? There's straight Filoni, which is some of Clone Wars, right, and a lot of Rebels, and then there's Mandalorian Filoni, which is collaboratively passed through a John Favreau, like
Lens.
I was going to say filter, but lens is better, right? Because it's just refocused. And then that is then reinterpreted through these slates of directors. I think Robert Rodriguez was even into this slate.
Yeah,
He did
the tragedy.
And so like having that system set up, I think, has really benefited The Mandalorian quite a lot in terms of Dark Troopers showed up. They're interpreted and shown in a way where it doesn't drag you down, right? A lot of it is like that, I think. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I worry about dragging a character like Ezra into this show. I like Ezra. I don't dislike Ezra, but like, there's gonna be a series finale here where a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't get it," or a lot of people will be like, "Oh, it was really cool that Boba Fett helped him do the thing."
Well, I mean, if you look back at season 1, the series finale is Moff Gideon cutting himself out of a TIE fighter with the Darksaber.
But
and some people are like,
go ahead. Finish.
That's just a cool visual. You're just like, oh shit, that's cool. Whatever that is.
Right.
Whereas if this season finale is them like saying like, oh, Moff Gideon's been and his freighter have gone offline, and then you suddenly have Thrawn turn to camera. It's like, thank you for informing me, XYZ, and then you see him go to talk to Ezra, who's in bindings because he's captured. Like, if that's where it goes, no, you don't know who that is, but that's still a cool visual. Like, who's this blue dude? Like, what's this all about? And that's just like, that builds up the next chapter.
It leaves a lot of people, and Loren probably is too engrossed in the canon. Not in a bad way, but like, I think it leaves a lot of people going, I know people know who these people are, and I don't, and therefore this show isn't for me.
There's a thing happening with season 2 that was not happening with season 1, and I don't know if it's just that everybody's stuck in quarantine, so we've all got there's more time spent online or stuff like that. But with the addition of so much EU stuff and so many other characters, literally I wake up Friday morning and my timeline on Twitter and Facebook and everything is just like, here's 5 articles, each of which is explaining the 20 new things that you don't know about in The Mandalorian. And I'm like, okay, it sucks that everything's being spoiled, but at the same time, it's like, they're clearly relying on stuff that like casual Star Wars fans are like, at first blush would be like, that's cool, I want to know more about that. And then someone's like, oh, well, you can. Here's 20 books. Here's a whole video game. Here's a whole, other TV series to go watch.
7 seasons of a show.
Exactly. And so it has sort of created, I think, this disconnect. Like you're saying, it's like people know these other things are out there.
Yeah.
But not only that, it's like, damn, this TV show wants me to do homework.
Yeah, very much. I think though, it's funny because we started this podcast, Loren, and I hope to have you back again.
Sure.
But to have you, a little background was I started asking questions to Ken, and the answers were always like, go watch this. We'll go. That's in a book. That's in this
Sorry.
season. No, but I wanted to know, and I didn't want to know in the way that you find out from Wikipedia. I can go down that hole and sit online and be like, this stuff is really like, there's way too much of it here. I don't understand. And I just can't keep clicking through these articles. And that's just not what people want to do. And so there's like 3 tiers of people, right? There's like the casual people that want to stay in the lane. There's the middle group that know there's an expanded universe and maybe they don't want to engage with it so much. There's this group kind of splinters both directions. They want to stay casual or they don't. And I was on the they don't side when it came to a couple things that I ran into. And I was like, well, then it's time. And so we started the podcast as I started rewatching Clone Wars and Rebels, rewatching the first season of Clone Wars and then watching the rest of it and watching Rebels and starting to like get reconnected. And Kit and Ken were very kind in sitting through podcast episodes of me just asking them questions about Star Wars. Leaving people with the idea that they're missing out is maybe cool to a lot of people, but not cool to some people. I don't know. I don't know where the line is there on who's interested in seeing a Thrawn show up on a bridge and cut to black.
Yeah, I think there's definitely that level of like, well, we have to be inclusive to people who aren't going to go do all this, because if it ends up just being the, Mandalorian has been an incredible success as far as the Star Wars franchise or piece of media goes. And if they end up making it so esoteric that you can't even watch it without, having already seen all these other shows and having a Wikipedia page open to understand what's going on, then it's not going to do well.
Yeah. And you'll absolutely continue to have the articles that you were just talking about pop up in your morning feed. But what you won't have is the afternoon stuff that I have to avoid where I can't watch it till night. I know how to avoid the morning stuff, which is the people that had articles paid for to run the second the thing hit so they could get clicks. And then the afternoon people who casually talk about what happens. It's amazing how big that audience is of like when Grogu got a name, that thing trended all day on Twitter, right? It trended all day. And like I knew enough not to click on that. It's like that's a weird thing. I shouldn't. It's Mandalorian Day. I need to not be in trends. That's a good thing. And one of the funny articles that now that you mentioned it, that I actually read this last week was how amazing is it that the psyche of the world is able to be taken by these types of things. And streaming, we were talking about earlier, streaming this type of way where you're not a Netflix and you don't dump everything all at once, but you stream weekly, one at a time, and it keeps going back to the Game of Thrones style of being a weekly thing that people talk about. There's a potential to either split this into becoming the most popular Star Wars thing of the time, more popular than those sequels for sure, right? Where it's more
There's contempt in his voice.
No, but
those
more
sequels.
They're bad, first of all.
Star Wars is a whole thing.
It's
There's
a big
good, all
it's
of
a
it.
big tent, and if you love it, I don't want you to feel like I'm saying you're not you, Loren. I'm saying you, but I'm saying anybody listening. I appreciate a lot of those new movies, and I really appreciate a lot of the actors in the new movies, and I like the characters in some instances, but we have constructive discussion about what makes them not coherent in a lot of cases.
For sure.
Not coherent. And to me, not coherent could be better, and therefore they're bad.
Started tangent.
That is a tangent. I'm trying to get to the point, which is what I was saying is you have this idea that you could create this weekly discussion. You can create this weekly buzz. You can get people out there on Twitter talking about it. You could get everybody that's not on Twitter talking about it and texting each other. And they've gotten to that point. They've hit it. They are now at Game of Thrones level of being the show that people are talking about every week while it's on. What they don't want to be is Game of Thrones, where it was on and now no one's going to talk about Game of Thrones ever again. It's a dead property. You probably will never see another book from it until GRRM is gone, and then maybe if his notes go to Sanderson, like every other author's notes go to Sanderson, he finishes the books. But there's no. If there was ideas, and there probably were for spin-off shows for Game of Thrones, they're gone. If there were ideas for other universe related, related books, all that type of stuff, that property was mishandled. And so the idea of sitting there with all this EU that you could drop in without saying this is the show for X people, and really redefining what it means to bring in characters, could drop you into the wrong territory. And that's why I think you end up with the end of the season not being about an Ezra, not being about more than explaining what a Darksaber is, really, honestly.
That's fair.
If we bring back Bo-Katan and have another episode of Mandalorians, it's going to be tough for a lot of people, I think.
I think that could actually be an interesting way. If they don't use it somewhere else, I think that actually could be an interesting way where the story goes. Like, not necessarily like the Bo-Katan show, but just who is a Mandalorian in a world where they're going to retake Mandalore? Like, what does that make him if people he knows that are also have a similar creed are deciding, like, and who've helped him in the past as he collects best friends across the planet or across the universe, do they like, hey, we're going to go retake Mandalore from the Empire. We need your help. Like, what is that? Like, that could be where, I mean, the Mandalorian is a great place for that story to take place.
So, I mean,
I don't think it has to happen. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, speaking as a fan of it, I can see why you would want, speaking as a fan of Star Wars, especially, and knowing the EU as well as you guys do about what's missing, right? Everyone that has watched all of this stuff, and I don't think you have to read any books to know that this is missing, knows that the story of Mandalore is not complete. There's a gaping hole in the middle that they have even alluded to in a show that is not specifically geared towards people that have watched every episode of the Clone Wars, right? Or Rebels. And so knowing that there's this giant gaping hole between how we got from Clone Wars to Sabine being in the Imperial Academy on Mandalore, and having the Darksaber fallen from Bo-Katan's possession to Gideon's, right? There's this huge hole that I think a lot of, including myself, would not mind. A lot of people would not mind seeing filled by this show, right? There's that road to travel. There's the road they're on, which is like what I was talking about before, the Protector story, which is what we're still in, right? He's learning how to be a better Protector all the time. And now we've got Boba Fett back in his own armor, which was really fun to see. I did not realize that was a shotgun, by the way, until he started using it.
Since I've built my own world of just nerds that I talk to. Do the people you talk to who are just subtle fans, casual fans of Star Wars, do they know who Boba Fett is? Did they say like, oh, that's him in his armor, that's his armor, and that he's back? How did that land for them?
I was the only one in the room that jumped up when I saw Slave One hit the screen. Right?
I was very curious about that.
And I texted a few other people, and I was like, Slave One, and then, huh?
Were you group watching it with the
I was
Disney feature?
No, I want to do that. We should do that. Like, as a podcast group of fans, we should like get together and use that feature so that we all stay safe or whatever. But like, I have a couple people on text while we watch it at roughly the same time, and a lot of times I wait till people are done, because I'll text like, oh, I'm starting it now, and then they'll be starting it. A couple of us watch it around the same time in that group that you're asking about specifically, casual fans. And like, yes, at a certain point they knew who it was, But when you saw him on Tatooine, he was just a random dude. When you saw the armor, people didn't really quite connect it the first time because it didn't look like him before. It looked like Cobb Vanth. And then when the ship hits...
Adventure doesn't look like him now.
Yeah, well, you know. I like that black.
Yeah.
The black under that armor
Tunic
looks
thing.
really good. Like with the cape hanging out the back.
Just another Black Series for you to buy.
No.
Get ready.
Maybe. It would have
next to this one, and this one, and this one.
It has to be in the correct packaging to go next to my Empire Strikes Back one. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Fair
enough.
But Slave 1 hits the screen. And I don't know. Was I the only one that was like, yes, it is him. Hooray.
For me, there was never any question.
Oh, okay.
It was Timur Morrison. Like,
well,
it had to. Who else would it be? Unless it was a clone. And some people are like, well, maybe it's a clone. I'm like, it's not a clone.
It's too deep a pull. Yeah. I had hoped that it would be that deep a pull, but it wouldn't be that deep a pull.
I mean, I don't think we're done with Rosario Dawson, and so that by extension, I don't think we're done with Rex. And we know that he was at the Battle of Endor, so I can see us getting a Rex cameo in some live action show. I just think it'll throw people off too when they're like, wait, didn't we just see him in that Mando show?
That's the thing, Matt, right?
He's not scarred up. He's got a beard.
That's the thing.
I don't get it.
That's why you won't see him probably outside of this role at this point.
The number of people I had to going into the first season of Mandalorian had to be like, no, it's not about Boba Fett. Like, so I think for that exact reason, yeah, you're not going to see a lot. If you do see a live action Rex, it probably won't be played by Timur Morrison, or maybe it will, and they'll take that gamble. But like, I full on read, like, I was reading articles still during season 1 where they were referring to Din as Boba Fett, and I was like, what is happening? Did you watch this? And so it's that like casual level of confusion of like, oh, that's the armor, that must be Boba Fett. So this must take place before episode 4 because the armor's still shiny, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing to go into these things as a casual observer, but it is, like you said, and as sort of we've been talking about this whole time, like it can be confusing.
Absolutely. I had tons of questions. I kept asking these guys, okay, so why doesn't he take his helmet off? Because I've never heard that before this show brought it up, right? Okay, why? Well, there was the big question, too, that we got answered this time. About who...
A lot of people...
well, the big question that got answered from a lot of people that are fans of EU stuff... Mm-hmm. Wondered for a while was Jango Fett an actual Mandalorian person, or did he steal the armor or whatever? Like the implication for a while, I think from a lot of previous EU, was that maybe Boba Fett was not in fact a true quote unquote, DNA or whatever, like a hereditary Mandalorian.
Yeah.
And so they finally take that and they put it to rest by saying, no, like we've explained to you what a foundling is in season 1. So now it's time to say, hey, the backstory of this character is they are also foundling. And so therefore they are Mandalorian. There's no more question about it.
Well, I mean, that this actually pulls back to a Clone Wars episode where Obi-Wan Kenobi is speaking to one of the officials. He's like, I had a run-in with someone wearing Mandalorian armor, Jango Fett. Like, what about him? Because at that point they show that someone in Mandalorian armor did a heist or something, essentially, if I remember correctly. And he's like, oh, no Mandalorian would do that. We're peaceful people now. And he's like, well, what about Jango Fett? And he's like, oh, no, he's just a common bounty hunter. I don't know how he got his armor. And people pointed to that, saying like, oh, see, this is us clarifying that he's not a true Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But with this new context, you also have to think about it of this is someone who is of royal lineage and also he's also a liar in the story too, but he's of royal lineage, and he's like, oh no, he's not a Mandalorian, who's likely someone who's like, oh, foundlings aren't Mandalorians. They're not born into it. So I mean, if you go back into the idea of like it's a religion, these are people who adopt that religion. These are people who I'm a convert, and so that I'm, now I'm this religion, and people are like, no, I've lived this life. You're not a convert. You're not this. I'm this, and you're just an outsider.
Yeah, it's interesting though because
So,
Boba, unlike all the others so far, he isn't raised that way. He was raised for how long before Jango is dead? And then he's on his own being raised by bounty hunters. So he's not even, in general, he's some
Child
sort
of
of
the Watch.
castaway Mandalorian in a way.
yeah.
He's a foundling castaway. I don't know how you
Well,
square that circle.
Well, he's essentially he's been raised since his birth by Django, because they mentioned that there's no genetic modification. So he, up until the age that he was essentially 10 there,
Yeah.
he was that age, and they didn't fast track his DNA. They didn't do any aging to him. He came out at that age as a baby, and then he raised him himself. So he was raised by Django, and even Django being a foundling of a different sect, maybe they had different beliefs. And if you're canonizing open season, they took off their helmets in that clan all the time. So if you're canonizing that, at least for this discussion, then it's just a different sect. It's like a different, like you can name 14 different types of Christians out there. So, and they
Okay,
what
do it.
Okay, evangelicals, Baptists.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay.
Don't do it. Stop.
Okay. But so there's all those different splinters of one belief. And so like, oh, that's maybe he just came from a different one. So, we don't ever see Django remove his helmet during the original trilogy, but we saw him as a kid do it. So it's like, where does this
Takes off his helmet in the original trilogy. Django or Boba?
Boba?
Oh, you said Django, so I was confused.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's my bad. Yeah, we don't see Boba take off his helmet in the original trilogy. So that's part of what them kind of like, oh, well, since we never saw that, maybe that informed their decision in the Mandalorian.
Maybe.
But yeah.
Loren brought up a good point that people for a while were saying, oh, the Mandalorian, so it's about Boba Fett. So I think a lot of casual people along the way already knew who that was. And so the idea that he's back and he's cool and he hits people with a gaffy stick really hard is fun. But now we've brought back in the one that people were confused about. Where do you go from here? Do you write him back out? Does he just stay on the show?
I think they're going to do it's going to be a 2-part finale. They're going to finish it up. And then their debt will be repaid, and Fennec and Boba will go back to Tatooine or off into the universe somewhere. And Mando will go get a new ship.
It would be really cool if he had Slave 1. Just saying.
Maybe he does get Slave 1.
Or maybe he gets Slave 2.
Oh, yeah. Which one? This is the Slave 2, right?
No, this is Slave 1.
Slave 2, the new batch.
Slave 2 is like flat ship. I think.
I'm Googling it because I never remembered there being. Oh.
Yeah,
I thought
Slave 2 is like flat.
Slave 2 looks like the Moldy Crow. There's a 2 and a 3 and a 4? What?
3 is another I don't know what the type of ship that Slave 1 is, but I think 3 is another Slave 1. Am I wrong?
I'm just looking at pictures. But yeah, they're weird. It's not flat so much as like really squared up. It looks like the Moldy Crow to a degree. And that's a little interesting. It's very angular. It's because the Slave 1 is so rounded, and it's very, very round.
He had to use Slave 2 when he crawled out of the Sarlacc pit in
Old EU.
In Old EU, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
Slave...
that Sarlacc was actually Force sensitive because it ate a Jedi.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it was the thing. I don't remember. It was
the midichlorians, the M count.
In a comic or a novel or something, but there was a Jedi in that Sarlacc.
I really don't know if there's a good explanation for why Boba doesn't have his armor. I've been thinking about this the whole podcast.
Whenever he got out, he wasn't fully aware of his senses, and someone took it off of him and they healed him. And he's like, "Where's my armor?" He's like, "Oh, we sold that because we needed food, so we healed you." He's like,
Yeah.
"Why'd you do that?" This is why,
Oof.
because we needed to feed you.
Slave 4 is not a good looking ship. It looks like the Spruce Goose. It is the Spruce Goose with just no wings on it.
Fair enough.
Ugh.
I googled Slave 4 and all I got is the Britney Spears song "I'm a Slave for You."
Oh, use the number. And
No, use the Roman numeral.
No,
It
don't
has the the Roman numeral. That would make sense.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I said that wrong. Yeah. There's a link here for
Oh,
Miley
wow.
Cyrus.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's rad. The Slave 4 rules.
You like that?
These are bigger than the rest of the ship.
It's an amphibious starship. It looks a little bit like the Razor Crest.
Loren loves Tailspin, so he's like, "This is what it's about."
Oh, it does look like Tailspin.
You're right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. It does look like the ship from Tailspin that I don't remember the name of. I also love these tiny. If you're looking at a picture of the Slave 4, right at the base of where like the body is connected to the engines, there's two gun turrets that can't possibly shoot anything because they're pointed directly at the engines.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even see those.
This is a very well designed ship. This
I
thing
didn't
is
even
cool.
see those. And it looks like there's guns above the cockpit too.
Yeah, I thought that was like the upper part of the cockpit. No, there's just more guns.
There's just more guns on the cockpit. Yeah.
So as we leave our listeners with the idea of, hey, go Google the Slave 4, use the Roman numerals, and you'll see the Sea Duck from Tailspin.
Sea Duck. There you go. You know we're off topic and about done when we're talking about Tailspin. Although, is that on Disney Plus?
It is.
This is not a free ad for Disney Plus. We all pay for it.
Yeah. But do stick around for our sub pod Tailspin. Also,
you're not allowed to bring up sub pods unless you have good names for them. This is a rule.
Okay, fine. Then when are we doing Gate Crashers? Because we need to talk about.
I know we do need to talk about great Gate Crashers. Oh man, Loren, thank you for joining us on such short notice to talk about crazy amounts of Star Wars. I know it's a lot, but
Star Wars.
I know who doesn't, right?
A lot of people.
Yeah.
I think I know the name of our podcast there, buddy. It's called the Cloud Kickers.
But we're missing Kit. This is the word.
Kickers, not Kitters.
I know, but
yeah.
No, Kit Cloud Kicker. That's
Cloud
who he
Kicker.
is. It's Kit Cloud Kicker.
Oh.
Right, but we're missing Kit.
Yeah,
we don't have him.
Does he like Tailspin?
He loves Kit Cloud Kicker because it's one of the few characters that has a name aside from Kit Fisto. He's like I love Kit Fisto and I love Kit Cloud Kicker because they have my name.
There you go. Loren, do you have stuff to shout out?
Yeah, you can. I'm on a podcast called Nerds on a Roll, which is an actual play podcast. We play primarily a game called Masks. It is about comic book superheroes, and it's really fun. We do some cool stuff over there. We're on season 3 now. So check that out. Nerds on a Roll. If you like things like Teen Titans or Young Justice. You could follow me on Twitter at DM_LSP. Sometimes I tweet about the games that I write there.
There you go.
And
right on, man.
He's also, check him out there because he's got some games on itch.io.
That's itch.io. I think it's just /DMLSP. It's not, there's no underscore in that one. Or you could just Google Kissing Capes, which is the game I wrote about messy teenage superhero relationships.
Shout that out one more time. Itch.io DM.
Should just be DMLSP.
Okay. Maybe I don't know how to type, but that's okay.
Let me see if sometimes itch is weird. Let me find it out.
Itch is cool. If people, while you're looking that up, it's dmlsp.itch.io.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
They put it in front.
They put it in front. And there's some good stuff there. You should go check that out because it's cool. Mechtex.
Mechtex is a game I wrote about being the engineers who try to keep like Gundams running between battles.
Nice.
and watching your squad die around you. It's very much inspired by Mobile Suit Gundam 08 MS Team.
The best Gundam?
It's one of my favorites. Absolutely.
It's one of the best ones, I think. It's cool because it's so grimy. None of the other Gundams, they get too fancy, you know, and you're like, how'd you build that? That's why Iron-Blooded Orphans is up there for me, because it's grimy.
IBO is fantastic. I'm in the middle of a rewatch of it, actually.
Oh, there you go. I got to find out if JJ finished that. Anyway, okay, cool. So DMLSP at .itch.io. Nerds on a Roll. Thank you, Loren, for joining us. Ken.
Just check out my stuff at Comic Banter. You'll find the live stream. We're on YouTube. Look up Comic Banter, at Comic Banter on Instagram, Twitter, all the places. You'll find us. We're doing stuff. We're going to probably have one more episode this year talking about what ifs, and then we're going to probably wrap it up till 2021 just because 2020 has been a hectic year, and with family and the holidays, it's probably going to be one more episode.
Tough to do. Yeah.
But check out the archives.
You guys have a lot of production on that, so it's tough to do.
Yeah, it's time consuming.
Thanks both for joining me and listening to my crazy thoughts and uninformed opinions about Star Wars as I explore it more for Carbon Scoring and We Were Gamers. And it was really fun, I think. It's going to be Calcastus. It's got to be Calcastus.
Galen Merrick.
You went to Galen Merrick, but not Quinlan Voss.
That's surprising. Because we haven't seen Quinlan Voss or anything hide nor hair of him since the Clone Wars episodes he's in, and that's it.
That's a Filoni move, then. That's the most Filoni move, right?
It would be, especially because he survived in so many iterations. He survived, so.